Yo, it's me, it's yes, the OGT, baby. I'm back with my review of the 2012 film, The Avengers, starring Chris Evans, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Hemsworth, Jeremy Renner, Scarlett Johansson, Robert Downey Jr., and Samuel L. Jackson. It is directed by Joss Whedon. We now finish up Phase 1. Excuse me for a minute. I'm gonna pour myself a drink a la Tony Stark. Have a chat with y'all, okay? So, The Avengers! I didn't go see this in theater for some reason. I don't know what it was, but I didn't go see this in theaters. I don't know why. But I waited till the DVD release, right? So here's the DVD release. And yeah, watching this now in HD, and by the way, it fills the entire screen. Just because I like that. I wish I would have went to see this in theater because this would have been awesome. I never did, and I don't know why. I can't think of any reason why I wouldn't. I just didn't. Oh, I wish I did. Remember correctly, there was a time where I kind of got down on it. Like, I don't need to see it in theaters. Stupid are you? So, the villain of this film, okay, so maybe this is why. I always thought that when the Avengers got together, they would be fighting Ultron. Because in the versions that I've watched, you know, in Ultimate Avengers, well, that was more, maybe not, that was the Chitauri, but it was, you know. But like, Avengers United We Stand, the villain was Ultron. It was Ultron, and he's undefeatable. Avengers, the next Avengers, Heroes of Tomorrow, their villain is Ultron. So I thought Ultron was going to end up being the big villain, and they didn't do Ultron. Instead, Loki was the villain. And I'm sitting there saying, we already saw Loki as a villain. We don't need him again. Give us someone else. Why is Loki the big reason to bring these together? Why didn't they bring them all together in Thor then? If Loki was a big deal. You know? That's what went through my head. Watching Thor now, I understand. Loki never actually went to Earth. Here, Loki's showing up. There's some retconning because, and like as I mentioned, in the post-credit scene for Thor, it appears as if Loki is controlling Selvig. Here, they show him taking control of Selvig and Hawkeye and some other agents. And, you know, maybe because they need to make more sense of why he can control them. You know what I mean? But how big of a, you know, not a twist, but how it could have been like Hawkeye's fighting, you know, standing up, or like this way, okay, like, because he takes control of Hawkeye first, alright, he takes control of Hawkeye, you have Nick Fury standing there, let's say he has a gun on him, and he goes, I have you, you're not going anywhere, and next thing you know, you see someone knock the gun out of his hand, he turns, and it's Selvig, already under the control of Loki from before. But then they have the scene where he takes control. So see, that post-credit scene doesn't mean there's another post-credit scene that doesn't really go anywhere. The Age of Ultron one, which we'll get to it, but yeah, it's just that end credit scene goes nowhere. So then we, you know, they steal the Tesseract. So now it's time to call on the Avengers. It's big enough. Apparently they canceled the Avengers Initiative, which was never mentioned in the other film. Iron Man 2, they said that Iron Man was needed. Tony Stark was not. That's the last we heard of it. And we're never specifically given a reason why they started the Avengers Initiative. We can assume now that's something to do with Captain Marvel. They show us that. But here, he gives the reason why they needed to do this, why Phase 2 was supposed to happen, which was weapons with the Tesseract, was because what happened in Thor. And you watch now, you think of it now in the grand scope of things. Captain Marvel happened before this in the 90s, and you think that doesn't make any sense. There was an alien invasion in the 90s, but one giant robot stomping through New Mexico, a desert town, by the way, in New Mexico, that makes you decide we have to use the weapons for Tesseract for weapons, to make weapons out of Tesseract. Little iffy there. So, continuity, they're good at continuity in this franchise, but then sometimes when they go back and they try to add stuff in, like I didn't mention this in Iron Man 2, but there's, at the Stark Expo, Iron Man saves a little kid, and then Tom Holland, who plays Spider-Man, blurted out, "Oh, that's Peter Parker," and then they just decided to make that canon. Okay, fine, that's a little thing, but you take this, right, and you say that the reason that they were going to weaponize the Tesseract was because of one giant-ass robot stomping through New Mexico town sent by Loki. But then you go back and you have Captain Marvel set in the 90s, and there was aliens coming down and everything. That wasn't enough for you to weaponize it? Maybe it started the idea, and then somehow between the 90s and 2010 you decided, nah. But, and here's my confusion. So in Avengers, they say last year is when the when Thor happened. Okay, but we're supposed to be in 2012 here, right? But Iron Man 2 takes place just a few months after Iron Man, so it takes place in 2009, maybe even, and then Thor takes place right after that, which is probably late 2009, early 2010, right? How's it last year? The timeline is all messed up because you get to Spider-Man Homecoming and they say the Battle of New York was 8 years earlier, but no, it'd been 8 years since the MCU started at this point, but the Battle of New York wasn't 8 years prior to that. The timeline, it's weird because when you look at the timeline online and everything, they said that Iron Man and Hulk take place at relatively the same time. Then Iron Man 2 takes place a few months after that. And then Thor takes place almost exactly right after that. So, and then Captain America's in the 40s, that doesn't count. But then you have this that takes place supposedly in 2012? I don't know. And it's been stated many times that this takes place in 2012, and then he says a year earlier, and so we're supposed to believe that Thor took place in 2011, but how can that be when Iron Man, even if we were going by Iron Man took place in 2010, Iron Man 2 took place in 2010, that still doesn't make sense why Thor takes place in 2011. Because we see the post-credit scene right at the end of Iron Man 2, which Coulson leaves right at the end of Iron Man 2 to go deal with it. Doesn't take him a year to get there, I guarantee you. Not even a few months. It'll take him a couple days to get to New Mexico. It's S.H.I.E.L.D. Surprised they can't teleport him there. And with the Tesseract, surprised they hadn't perfected teleportation. Just saying. They've mentioned before that it has to deal with space and time. So, I'm just saying. And yes, I forgot to mention in Captain America, the First Avenger, that making weapons out of the Tesseract is exactly what Hydra was doing. So you take this, you take that context, you put them together, and you get the twist in Captain America Civil War that Fury knew nothing about, but it was the higher-ups that were making the weapons. So you put those together, and you get the twist, and suddenly you sit there and you go, oh, I get it. Why they make weapons? Because Red Skull was making weapons, because they're secretly, you know what, and we'll get to that in a couple movies or so. But, you know, there's continuity errors when you consider the rest of this franchise, and it's weird because the same people have been in charge of this franchise since about this point, really. So, to retroactively, you know, the timeline's all weirded out, and just, it's confusing. Another thing that I didn't like on first watch was that the fact that Hawkeye is part of the Avengers. Supposedly with the Avengers, and they turn him evil with the Loki staff, which, if you don't know, is the Mind Stone, which works. But they use that to take over his mind. That's one of the things I didn't like about this film when I first watched it. Now I get it. They need it for this script to work. Well, I would have said write a different script. I still don't like it. It's the Avengers are supposed to be assembled together. I understand they saved that for the end half, but come on. What was the point of establishing all these heroes and you don't assemble them all together right at the beginning of the film? Some of them do. But they just fart around for 3/4 of the film. Really? What happens? What happens? I mean, this is a good movie. Don't get me wrong, but what happens? Right? Everything happens at the beginning with Loki. That happens. Then they assemble the Avengers, right? So you get scenes where Romanoff is all tied up, but she's actually interrogating someone, and she has to go get the Hulk. Fine. Then Coulson uses some of that great SHIELD stuff to break into Tony Stark's apartment to tell him we need him. This is phase 1 SHIELD, so I'll forgive it, but I'm just saying, he keeps trying to ignore them, and they break into his apartment, basically. They override the protocols. That's breaking and entering, people. But I'll let it go, because it's phase 1 SHIELD, alright? So they recruit Iron Man. They recruit the Hulk. They got Black Widow. Of course, we get the scene that was played in the end credits of Captain America First Avenger. He's brought on. They're there. And what do? Sit around and talk. Until they beep beep get people on their computer about Loki being at some party, which is clearly a trap, but they go anyway. There's a nice little fight scene. Thor shows up. There's a little fight scene. They capture Loki. They go back. And then they talk. And bicker. And bitch. And bitch. And bitch. And banter back and forth. Now, having years to get used to this, I've gotten used to it. Continuing the story plot here. Talking. Angry talking. Banner has the staff. Why? They're in an argument, right? Because the plan is to unleash the Hulk. And in an argument, and he's holding the Mind Stone. He's holding the Loki staff. Why? It doesn't make sense that he would grab it without knowing. But it's the Mind Stone. Yes, that doesn't explain it away. How he just suddenly has it and doesn't even know he has it. The Mind Stone cannot control you unless someone is wielding it. The Mind Stone is not sentient. It cannot control you without somebody controlling it first. And Loki is not controlling it. So it makes no sense that he picks it up out of nowhere. That always throws me off. Why is he holding it? It makes no sense. There's no one there to control the stone, to control him, to grab it, so it makes no fucking sense. It's confusing. And then the attack happens. Hawkeye, arrow, explodes one of the turbines. You know, they're scrambling, there's fighting. The Hulk, even though supposedly he can control the Hulk. Later in the film, as he states, he's always angry. I don't know. Big fight. Couple of the Avengers get separated. And then we go back to talking. And you have the cards that go. Yeah, Phil Coulson, he dies, and then you have the cards that he wanted Cap to sign with obviously not real blood, because blood's not that red. It looks like paint, and you're like, oh, that's fake. And then it's revealed that this was set up. It wasn't really in his pockets anyway. They needed a morale change, okay? So the Avengers eventually pair up again. And finally we have the big battle after all this talking, this thing. I understand there's a story arc you want to go through in a film. But what's the use of having all these characters in their own individual films and bring them together to just blurt out a bunch more exposition about what's going on? And all you have them do is talk for at least half of the film. They should be kicking ass for the whole 2.5 hours. Kicking ass, doing something. Not sitting and talking, and sitting and talking, and sitting and talking. Maybe that's why I wasn't so high on this film when it first came out. It's like the case, why is this awesome, but not as awesome as you thought it would be? Because you want to be up there watching them on the screen, kicking ass and taking names, not sitting and bitching about each other and pointing out their flaws. Take away the suit, what are you? Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. You don't want to see them argue. You want to see them fight together. Loki's plan was to get them to argue. I'm sorry. I love this film. It was my son's favorite film for the longest time. I don't know if it still is, but it might be. But it always gets me that there's so much talking in a film where I've always thought you had them have their own individual films so you can show their origins and get away out of the exposition and everything we needed to get out of here so that Avengers can be one film of them just fighting and working together and fighting bad guys. But you have a bunch of talking. 2.5 hour film, and half of it is talking. It's just... And for the longest time, people said this was the best film in the MCU, and I never saw that. Because to me, yes, I see its merits now. In the grand scape of the MCU, I see what they were trying to do. But I'm giving you, this is my thoughts now. This is my thoughts when it first came out, when I first watched it. Alright, so don't get me wrong. Don't get, oh, he's hating on this. No. Me now understands what they were trying to do. I'm talking about me in 2012. Alright? Me in 2012 was thinking, okay, they had all these individual films setting up all the exposition we needed, setting all the character work that we needed, so that in this film, all they have to do is just go out there and fight, and it's a bunch of talking. I'm not meaning to get upset. This is 2012 Scotty talking. 2020 Scotty understands why they did all this. It's setting forth more stuff to happen, and it's showing you that even though they're brought together, they're not all just going to get along. I get that. I get that. Now, then I just want to see him kick ass. Now when I watch it, I know what I'm getting into. The one-liners. That man is playing Gallagher. Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did. You know, put on a suit. Make me put on a suit. Put on the suit. You know, you do not make me Loki. He is my brother. He killed 500 people. He is adopted. You know, listen, brother. I stutter again. Listen to me, brother. I'm listening. I'm sorry. My stutters get me today. Just one-liners and stuff. And I'll get to my favorite line. Hulk? Smash. I love that one. That's not my favorite line. My favorite line. We'll get to it. So, yeah. 2012 Scotty was less than enthused with this because he thought it was just going to be a bunch of superheroes kicking ass for, 2 hours. But there was so much talking. And that's what kind of throws it off. And even now, I see where, you know, I was watching this with the sound off until there was an action scene. I turned the sound back on and watched the action scene, and when it was done, I turned it back off. Because I love the action scenes in this. But the point that they're talking, while there's still good banter, to me, I like the action stuff. I'm sorry. I do. But yeah, it's still a great film. I like how Hulk just like Hulk keeps trying to stand up to him. He grabs him and throws him around. Puny God. First words from Hulk, by the way. And yeah, and okay. One thing I'm convinced is that Barton having a family wasn't written until they were writing the script for Age of Ultron. Clearly, there was a romance between Black Widow and Hawkeye in this film. And then they saw the chemistry between Mark Ruffalo and Scarlett Johansson, said, no, let's make them have the romance, and we'll just do something else with Hawkeye. We'll give him a family. Well, I'll talk about that with Age of Ultron, but clearly there was romance between them. As soon as, like, you can't tell me, like, she was told she had to go in, and she's like, oh, I'm making these guys talk. As soon as she found out that Barton was in trouble, she, hold please, and kicks ass and gets out of there. You can't tell me that's not romance. Come on. You can say, oh, it's love like sisterly love. Come on. That's someone you love more than just a brother. Come on. I'm just saying. And with Stark going up, why does the suit shut off when it goes into space? I mean, okay, later, maybe there's a different version that goes into space later, but why is it shut off when it goes into space? Is there a reason for that? Did they explain it? Because I don't remember them explaining it. He gets into space, and it shuts off, and then he falls. Yes, he's in a portal, whatever, but still. I'm trying to get this. It's a long review. I'm sorry for taking this one long. But, yeah, so we get the climax and everything. My favorite scene where they're all around in a circle. I love that part. I always go, yeah! Whenever the part's on, because they're a team. They're finally a team. They're done talking. They're done bitching at each other. They're just going to fight and kick ass. Yes! That's what that scene means to me. And yes, we get some things. I love the Stan Lee cameo. I'm talking about him, but it's superheroes in New York. It's funny. And then they go their separate ways, and you got this council. Now, this one got me. So the council says, ask where the Avengers are. And about where the Tesseract is going to be. Now, we know by Avengers Endgame, there was supposedly something happened where the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., played by Robert, I can't remember his name, shows up and tells them to give them the Tesseract. Eventually, they must convince him to take it back to Asgard. So why is the board of directors asking where the Tesseract was? Clearly, he would have reported back to them. He's on the board, right? It just makes no sense. You add in stuff, but in this context, they're asking where the Tesseract is. You should know if the Avengers told you that they're going to send it to Asgard with Thor. If that scene actually happened, you should know. Because Alexander would have told you. So it's confusing when you look at the grand scope of the MCU now. It's kind of weird to think about smaller things like that. Like, why wouldn't they know if this scene in Endgame tells us that they were trying to take it away because Heil Hydra, so, I'm just saying. Oh, spoilers for Captain America Winter Soldier. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. And then we get the post-credit scenes. Shawarma, whatever. The other one. So, I remember watching this at home when I first got the DVD, popping in, and they show Thanos. I had no fucking idea who it was. They showed him, he turns around, I'm like, who are you? What am I supposed to be? I mean, I've been watching Sean Chandler's reviews, and he said everybody in the theater gasped at it. I'm like, I had no idea who this guy was. Who's this? And I had to look it up. Thanos. Okay. And then I had to look up more about it. And the Infinity Stones, I'm like, Infinity Stones? So they're heading towards something here. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know who Thanos was. I was expecting it to be Red Skull, because I figured he's going to come back. Or Ultron, for God's sake. But, purple guy. I know who he is now, but 2012 me was like, hey, he's a purple guy. Who's he supposed to be? I don't know. But as it goes on, you know, I'm just saying, yeah, it was underwhelming. Waiting to see who it was that's under controlling these things, and it's nobody I know. You know, I'm not big. I'm collecting comics now, but growing up, I didn't read a lot of comics. I didn't know who Thanos was. Although I guess he was part of the Silver Surfer show, but I guess I didn't watch enough of that because I started watching the Silver Surfer stuff afterwards. Like, hey, that's Thanos. How did I know what Thanos was? I guess I didn't watch enough of Silver Surfer when I was a kid. But yeah, my favorite quote, this is getting long in the tooth. My favorite quote, of course, is, we have an army. We have a Hulk. Of course. And I have to say that it's going to get a 9 out of 10 for me. Absolutely get 9 out of 10. I love the film. 2012 me had a lot of problems with the talking. I understand it now. It still bugs me a little bit. But at least I still watch the action scenes when I turn the sound back on. You know what I mean? It's still a good film. I enjoy it. 9 out of 10 for me. What are your thoughts on the Avengers? Let me know in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.